Okay, everyone, we're delighted that you can join us today. My name is Aileen Bright, and I'm joined here by my colleague, Maya, and we work on the GLOBE program out of the Environmental Education Unit of An Taisce. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with GLOBE, but we are delighted that you are interested enough to join us on this sunny afternoon. We have been operating in Ireland since 2017. Maya, if you just go to the next slide. Yeah. We've been operating here since 2017. The GLOBE program, it's an international science and education program. It's sponsored by NASA in the States, but in Ireland, we're sponsored by the EPA. So we're very grateful for their support and the kind of programs that we've engaged in. We've been working closely with the Irish EPA on that, and our areas that we focus on would align closely with their focus areas. So what does GLOBE stand for? It's Global Learning and Observations to Benefit the Environment. Really, the focus here is on citizen science. It's mainly in schools, but also amongst the general public. And the thing about GLOBE, which, it's funny, it was kind of ahead of its time in some way, because we hear a lot about citizen science now, but GLOBE is actually about 25 years old. And, really, what they found is, obviously there's a lot of satellites up there recording information on the Earth's surface. And, what they focused on was getting people on the ground to take Earth-based measurements. And originally that was helping them validate their satellite measurements. But as this thing has evolved, it's just grown into this huge, international education program. So from our perspective, in Ireland, like we launched the program in 2017, as I said, with support from the EPA, and we focused mainly on one of the spheres. So there's 4 spheres in total. There's the atmosphere, the biosphere, the pedosphere, which is soil, and hydrosphere. So we began by focusing on the atmosphere, and we worked closely with the EPA air quality team there to work on an air quality campaign, which you may or may not be aware of. And so what's happened since then, we've had 7 campaigns to date, and our numbers have grown steadily, even during COVID, when you think, there is such chaos and challenges in the schools, but we were still able to have a presence there in the schools. And surprisingly enough, the numbers taking part in our campaigns increased during that time. So now we've reached at least 150 people or teachers taking part in each of our campaigns. It's open to primary and secondary school students. And we've had schools from all counties, across the country take part in the campaign. The thing about this is, we've discovered that there's a huge appetite for citizen science. Students are very capable of, taking Earth-based measurements for whatever they may be, atmosphere, biosphere, pedosphere, hydrosphere, and they really get something out of it. It's really meaningful for them because these results of the work that they've gathered actually inform decision making. At least at the EPA level, they're thinking about these results, particularly in the air quality sphere. So what does GLOBE Ireland offer? So for us now, things have evolved since then. Our team has grown to 3. And we've been focusing more on how we can support teachers better. We are delighted to be able to provide training, a week-long training this August, and it's accredited by the Department of Education. And it's always, it's based around all these different spheres and how you can engage your class with these different areas and themes. So not only will we have our own campaigns in the new year, we'll have our air quality campaign again, and we'll be running water quality and biosphere campaigns and measurement periods. But you can also take part in the GLOBE network. So this is what's really available to teachers. It's not just what's happening in Ireland, but it's what's happening around the globe. So you're able to take part in this. There's a lot of resources on the GLOBE website, but also we have more Irish specific resources that we can provide to you. There's even online training on GLOBE that you can take in any of these different areas, and a lot of kind of background material to help you implement these activities in the classroom. We also will be providing school-based workshops in the next year. that you'll be available to book under different themes and different areas. And we can't stress this enough, the opportunities for, both national and international collaboration within that Globe School Network. So currently we have about 450 schools just in Ireland that have taken part in a Globe campaign or program, but also there's all the schools around the world. So, we've gotten a lot out of that over the last year or two. So that's definitely an opportunity going forward. We also have, school project competitions. Schools have won, weather stations and, have shared their experiences and their stories and their scientific posters and artwork at our events, our annual events. So there's a lot happening with Globe that we're excited about for the coming year. Also, there's great opportunities for travel, if you are interested in that. It tends to be more the kind of thing where you'd have a small group in your class that are super motivated and really interested, and a teacher and 2 or 3 students can go and attend either a conference, a Globe conference in Europe, or they have Globe Games where you can go and actually participate in these kind of measurement periods with students from all across Europe. And then there's the annual conference also that's held in the States. And we've had actually school groups attend even the conference in the States at times. So it's very exciting. We're just showing the 2022 schedule because this is what's happening this year. There's the Globe Games is in Croatia. There's also a meeting in October for teachers in Croatia also. And we have Estonia in August. There's a learning experience. And we are in a position to support a small number of people to attend these kind of experiences and events. So like I said, in terms of international collaboration, we've kind of explored this a lot through our air quality campaign, that I mentioned. And I suppose this is kind of one of those things that you enter into sort of a cooperation with another school in another country, and you're kind of wondering, what is this actually going to bring to my class? So it typically would start with like a Zoom meeting, a whole class versus class Zoom meeting. And that's actually really nice because it's sort of like half science where you're asking the question like, well, in terms of air quality, what's the air quality like around my school? And then there's the cultural side of it of, what's going on with your school, and can you create a video, like walk around your school and share a video of this and just describe, what's happening in your country. And I think the students really got a lot out of that this year. We had a great experience with Globe Malta. And like on the science side of it, then we had the same measurement period, which, for our air quality monitoring, and we'll do the same thing again next year. But it's really interesting then comparing measurements from one campaign to the next, in a different country. And, for this year, we had a school in a really very urban, heavily trafficked environment, and they had received quite high NO2 values compared to some of the rural schools that were involved in Ireland. So that just, really sparked the students' interest. I'm learning something culturally, but I'm also learning something about the science. So we continue to have those opportunities through that Globe network. And actually, we were delighted this year to be able to submit a collaborative report to the Globe International Virtual Science Symposium. And we got the top level awards for that. And so it was a great experience. Thanks, Maya. Okay, so because this is all about citizen science, like one large aspect of the Globe program is having that data available. So this is available to anyone. So once you submit your data you can do it on the desktop or with an app or even by email. You can go and view your collected data online in this visualization website, but also you can have a look at other schools. We're represented in 150 different countries. So you can have a look at other schools that have measured the same thing as you have in your school. And you can even go back in time, and say, well, what was it like 10 years ago? What was the daily temperature like then? Or when did the buds burst on this tree in this country? So it's just an opportunity to, maybe get the students, particularly those that like to look at satellite data and look at the data in this format. It's really an opportunity for them to get engaged with it and get the most out of it that they can.
Yeah, so now we're looking forwards, right, towards the term of 22-23, but also over the next few years. And we really see all these different opportunities for Globe projects and themes that we have available for primary and secondary schools in Ireland to engage with, to grow. And so some of those include cloud observations, a lovely exercise for younger students to go outside and look up and describe what they see. And all of this, of course, being in the environment, being outdoors, and looking around is really nice and very important, exercises as well in mindfulness and gaining this kind of physical awareness of your surroundings. So weather, air quality, rainfall and flooding, looking at greening up and greening down in the spring and autumn, studying or heat in the temperature, air quality heat, or sorry, air temperature and soil and land temperature as well, to learn about the urban heat island effect, learn about carbon sinks and sources through collecting data, and then also river ecosystems. We'll be taking you through some of the examples and some of the project options that we would suggest around these themes in a little bit. So if you have questions about them, you can put them into the chat box already now, and we'll get to them once we get to the end. So there's a lot of different ways that you can engage with these project themes. You can do it as little or as much as you and your students are interested. So it can be a regular thing that you do when you walk into the classroom in the morning. You have maybe a little thermometer in the corner or a barometric pressure meter. They're really easy little things. They look like clocks and they move around, and they can help you see how much humidity is in the air. Maybe it can even help you understand our storms moving towards us or away from us, what happens when the air pressure is high or low. And just having that daily kind of check-in, what is the weather like, or going outside in a break time. We have one teacher who will give her iPad to her students and go into the Globe Observer app, which is a new app. It's very easy to use. You go outside and you put it up to the sky and you take a photo of the sky and you record the types of clouds you see. And there's a little bit of information as well, learning how do you do that. Another thing is whenever you're outdoor with your class, maybe bringing them on a field trip or going out to a park, you can stop at a tree and just measure the tree height and submit that to the Globe database as well. And then they actually use that data of tree height all around the world to understand land cover as well as the global carbon budget. So it's really kind of fascinating. And that's stuff that can be done, on a very regular basis. It's not a lot of effort. And it's just these little recordings and observations to help your students become a little bit more familiar with their environment and some of the processes around them. If you have the energy and time, it's not very time intensive, but it is certainly more intensive than just, recording temperature once in a while. You could choose to do a Globe project in your classroom. And I'll take you through the Globe project cycle now in a moment. But this could be something that is the 2 to 3 week time plan, or 6 weeks, or something you even do throughout the year. And that would be related to one of these themes. You would choose one, with your class. You could also choose, one or two even, if your class is interested in more than one. This is especially kind of, I think, very suitable if you're a TY teacher, if you have secondary school students who are interested in doing this over time. And it could even be connected to your green schools theme as well, if that was something that interested you. So another option is just to book a Globe workshop, and you can do this once off. We might fill up, we're not sure yet for the new year, but of course, once you get into the end of August or September, send us an email and you can let us know what theme you're interested in, and we would come and deliver a 1 or 2 hour workshop connected to your project theme, or just a general workshop once off. That's also an option. And then, of course, you can take part in the Globe campaigns. So they run all throughout the year. And there'll be the October air quality campaign, the spring and fall green up and green down, and the spring river ecosystem campaigns as well.
And Maya, just to interrupt there
yeah.
really quick to have a look at some of the questions in the chat box, because you can kind of tie it in with what you're discussing right there. The first question was from Barbara, and she was just asking if we'd recommend that in a large school, that would it be better for just one class or group to be involved, or is it okay, to have multiple class groups involved? And I know we have one school that we work with, and we have several teachers from the same school involved. But they at the moment they've been working on different things depending on what they're covering. We had, I think it was a chemistry teacher from a senior cycle chemistry teacher that had been working on the air quality campaign, and the other teacher was working on a biosphere project around the timing of budburst in the spring. And I thought that was nice. So there's like kind of different projects going on throughout the school. So it kind of, I really think it sort of depends on what the setup there in the school is, how it's easier for you to implement. I know some schools, they just stick to, if they have the Green Schools committee, maybe they'll just focus on it themselves. We always find with some of the campaigns like the air quality campaign, really like we just need like a teacher, one kind of engaged teacher to literally just accept the air quality pack in the school. So it'll come addressed to them and just take ownership over it and make sure those tubes just go up and come back down. But the whole school can be involved in the campaign. They can be, monitoring what's happening, talking about the weather and the traffic. And then it's really when it comes to the more later stage in the project, when you're thinking about behavior change and, can we encourage more active travel? Like that's really a school-based thing. So it's whatever sort of works in your situation. But we're always, like, we have 3 people on the team, so we're always available. You can email us and talk to us on the phone if you want to discuss your situation and what would work best for you.
And I'd also say there, with them involving multiple classes, that you might have younger classes if you're in a primary school who have different needs or are suited to different activities, like the spring green up and green down is great for the younger learners. And then if you have older students, the river quality or water quality or air pollution, there's other things that might be interesting. So it's very much a whole school program. And I think that question about the requirement of teachers availing of training before the school, that's not a requirement, but it's a great question, Leo. The Globe online program has training that you can do by yourself online, but it's definitely not a requirement to take part in the Globe Ireland observations. It might be helpful if you're interested in getting a little bit more background, but we'll also be supplying you with materials and worksheets, things that your students can read about the project or the theme that they're interested in working on. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and go on, Eileen.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say as well, there are a lot of different protocols that you can take part in Globe. And in order to, I guess, submit some of that information to the Globe database, sometimes as a teacher, when you have your account, they will require you to have a small amount of training done just to be able to submit that data. And it's usually, pretty straightforward. They're just trying to make sure that you knew, what you're measuring and you perhaps use the correct tool or equipment to do it. So it is quite straightforward, but just in case you came across that is a requirement for some of the protocols.
Yeah, and for one more asking to your question, Barbara, is of course when it comes to the project, sharing events and the project competitions, I think one thing we will look into next year is both having, a school prize like the weather stations, which is a prize for the whole school, but also individual prizes for the students themselves. So say, there are different teachers in the school who are running campaigns. It doesn't mean that just because, one class might win a prize doesn't mean that another student in a different class also can't. So I think that's something to be aware of as well once we get into the project competition season in May. So I'm going to go ahead and just share the Globe Ireland project cycle. So again, this is for if you are interested in running a whole project. It doesn't have to be this, but it would start with looking at or looking around you. What do you see? What are some of the environmental challenges around the theme that you choose to look at? And then you would find your problem statement. This is all based on the scientific method, which I think is already on the curriculum in a lot of schools already. So it's not really stretching what you would be doing in your classroom too far anyways. So you would make a problem statement. What is it that I want to really find out by launching this investigation? And then go and collect your data. So what is the challenge? What do I find? How am I going to, find out more about this observation? And those can be, open-ended questions, or they can be very specific. That can all depend on the level and the interest of the students. And then, of course, you have to look at your data. What does it mean? What do your findings mean? If the buds burst on the trees at a certain time and the temperature is a certain level, does it mean that it's been, warm for a long enough period that the buds have had time to burst? And you can share that through graphs or stories. There's a lot of different ways to then take that analysis and present it. And that can be really detailed, or it can be as simple as just taking some photos or making some drawings. And then what we like to kind of add to the project cycle is planning some actions around it. So it could be sharing results by writing. Science communication is something that's a big part of the GLOBE program. There are actually GLOBE vloggers, student vloggers, who will go out with video cameras or their phones and vlog the whole observation process and share that. Or it could be artwork or campaigns. There's been anti-idling campaigns after the air quality event, which have been really great to raise awareness at schools. But then the actions could also be very, very tangible things, like looking at the school grounds and thinking, can we maybe green up by putting planters on the rooftops, or if we're looking into temperature and the urban heat island effect, maybe even painting roofs, white, or installing microponds. There's a lot of different actions that we on the GLOBE team would have experience in facilitating, that we could both provide materials, but also guidance in, what steps would you need to implement some of these things. And we very much, are proponents of these being student-led. So the students deciding themselves, what can we do? What would we like to do? We would just provide, the suggestions. Of course, submitting that to this very exciting GLOBE Ireland project competition and sharing event. There'll be both these, school prizes, but also some individual prizes for the students to really motivate them individually to, do work around their project observations. And so what we'll do now is me and Aileen will kind of bring you through some of the projects in a little bit more detail, and then we'll have a chat about it at the end. So go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks, Maya. I know some of you may have taken part in the air quality campaign already, but just in case you haven't, the GLOBE Ireland Air Quality Campaign, this is really sort of quite a simple campaign, to be involved in. It's a great campaign to start with. And as I said before, it's all about traffic-related pollution. So in this case, what we do is we send an air quality pack to your school when you register. And within that pack, there's instructions of how to put up the tubes. You see there's on that picture on the right, that's a student actually putting up one of the small tubes that you will receive at your school. And then the important part there is then just taking off that bottom cap, and that allows the air, filter into that tube. So those 3 tubes that you'll receive, you put them up on the same date as all the other schools in the country. So usually we would have, like I said, 150 schools doing this. So we all, put them up in the next campaign. It'll be around the beginning of October. And we leave those tubes up for 4 weeks. And it's just the ambient air that makes it into that tube. And there's a little kind of a mesh in that top cap with a reagent on it that reacts to the NO2. So what happens at the end is you just put the bottom cap back on and stick those tubes back into the envelope. So it's really simple, really easy to take part in. But, from the student perspective, I guess, some schools, they may just be interested in what the air quality is like around their school. And that's perfectly fine, and the EPA is still very interested in having that information gathered. So that's perfect. For other schools, if there's a little bit more time there, they'll make a really nice project out of it. So they'll start by, in the classroom, they'll probably share one of the PowerPoints that we provided about air pollution. And then, so they're just kind of, raising that general level of knowledge in the class, and then getting the students engaged, like I said earlier, making a map. And I think like making a map is like one of those things that it's a skill in itself, and even just getting the students like either using, pencil and paper, or if they wanted to do it online, there's many different ways to do it online. But creating a map and thinking then about, well, where are the heavily trafficked areas around my school? And that's good for them too. They're just thinking like, okay, there's the drop-off area, or, there's that big road that goes by. And then thinking about the weather. And that's important because like, for some schools, like maybe they have great traffic flow, in the morning and afternoon. But if the, M1 or whatever is like right beside their school and the prevailing wind direction is going towards their school, the NO2 level will obviously still be high, despite the fact that maybe they don't have a big problem with traffic right around their school. So even just getting the students to think about that, I think, is lovely. Like it's kind of, helping them to think outside the box and not just, see things right in their local area. So yeah, it's kind of like linking all those things together. And at the end of this, what we do is we send all those tubes off to the laboratory in the UK. We get the results after a few weeks, and we share the results with the EPA. And the EPA analytics team make a lovely map showing all the different results in the different schools. And I think the point here for the students is helping them to understand that they're involved in real science. That this data, although like it's a 4-week measurement, I think the EPA still really value this data, and it's used in their process of understanding air pollution, particularly with NO2, because it's quite variable in time and space. So there could be a hotspot out there that the EPA is not aware of, because they can't have a monitoring station in every single locality. So in some instances, we've had schools identify hotspots this way. And that's helpful too, because the EPA can put up a monitoring station in that area or investigate further. So yeah, it's a great campaign. We'll be doing it again in the autumn, like I said, and we usually recruit around the end of August, beginning of September. Only thing I say to you, if you're interested in doing this with the class, is just to sign up early, because we found that it fills up quite quickly. And we unfortunately had to put a cap on it of 150 schools. So just sign up early, and we'd be delighted for you to join us.
Absolutely. I think another kind of fun part of the air quality campaign right now is also the link to the Safe Routes to School, to kind of analyze your school grounds and how do people get to school, and what are really the options and barriers as well, to really bring it into that kind of actions and solutions oriented knowledge building for some of the students as well. And that is such a fundamental part of most of these projects. I'm going to go ahead and tell you about some of the newer themes that we have less experience running in Ireland, but Globe has a lot of experience working on. So one of them is to investigate the relationship between land cover, surface temperature and climate change. So this is a big mouthful, but it's actually, incredibly simple exercise. Here, students would learn how to classify land cover. So another kind of very simple exercise that does exist in most geography classes, to learn, here's a grassland, here's, woodland, here's a tarmac or building. And they would just go ahead and classify that. It could be at a high level to even, look more granular, or it could be just drawing those different areas. And then what they do is they have an understanding of the air temperature. So is it warm or is it cool under the tree? And what they use here is this kind of infrared sensor. So again, this is kind of a piece of equipment that the schools would we would order for the school, or we would bring when we do a workshop on this topic. So it's not very expensive. It's only like, I think, €15 for one of them. And then they hold it in front of the kind of like a little thermometer probe gun ahead of the surface, and they can measure the temperature in different areas. And what they learn then is that different materials have different temperatures, and that, as we see the temperatures, rising at certain times of the year, they can learn how urban areas are more susceptible to the urban heat island effect. And this is one of Globe's yearly intensive observation campaigns. So they can collaborate with other schools in other areas where there's a much bigger urban heat island effect, and compare and see how climate change is impacting different locations differently. So it's also really a nice exercise in understanding the global connection and global citizenship. And then what we would suggest is, once they have the data and once they see, are we in an area that's very tarmacked or has a lot of pavement, what are some of the things that we can do to minimize that effect by, for instance, planting rooftop gardens, or trying to minimize the amount of pavement by planting more There's a lot of different interesting solutions to that we could encourage schools to work with. I see some questions coming in now. I'm not sure if they're about, okay, great. Yeah, so Aileen is putting in the land cover app. That's perfect. And there is a really cool Globe app to this as well, and you can practice this at home. I think it's really fun to use it. You kind of look around and you take a photo of what the land is like around you, and then you put that into the Globe database as well. And again, it goes into the system and helps, you know, NASA scientists along the way understand some of the impacts of climate change. So it's really a cool cool project. And as you know, we are talking about sustainability challenges so much, and also sustainable development and the sustainable development goals. We are really interested at Globe Ireland in linking our projects to some of these real, you know, life challenges that we are going through right now, and that the students also, you know, will be going through in their lifetime. So one of our projects that we're launching this year is to measure rainfall and explore flood resilience. So the measurement part here is pretty simple. You can make a rain gauge, or you can, you know, buy one, but making them is very simple, like you see on the photo here. You bring it outside, you record when you put it there, and then you record the rainfall over time. You can also compare this with Met Éireann's, you know, weather data, or if you have a weather station at your school, it'll also record this. And then you can learn a little bit more about some of the weather systems. Globe has a lot of great worksheets and material about weather systems. So learning about, you know, what causes storms, how is climate change connected to, you know, more frequent and more intense rainfall events. And then another step of this particular project, so this is maybe a little bit more of a long-term project that you would measure, you know, throughout February or January, or some of these more wet and rainy months. I know we have a lot of them in Ireland, so it could pretty much be something you do all year round or even daily. But what we would like to do is then connect that to understanding how soil around your school actually helps prevent you know, flooding. For instance, you'll have soil or plants that are very tight knit together that'll hold onto that water and help it, you know, soak in, or soil that's less good quality and the water will just run off. And you can also look at that difference by pouring water on some tarmac and pouring it into a potted plant, and then one pot with compost, and show that difference. So that's part of the workshop that we would go and provide on this topic, or something that, you know, teachers can also do by themselves in their class. And then really kind of the next step would be learning about what are the nature-based solutions that can be implemented around schools, and understanding that, you know, we all can play a role in minimizing, you know, or improving flood resilience by planting, you know, hedges or planting trees. And there's a lot of different things, or, you know, rain gardens or bioswales, different things that the students could choose to share. Even if you're in a coastal area as well, an option would be going down to the coast and maybe looking into the option of, you know, restoring marram grass. So this is all connected very well to this, you know, urban regeneration and sustainable development. So again, if there is this option of connecting to other schools in different places in the world who are also measuring rainfall and exploring solutions for flood resilience. So this is just a really exciting, I think, very contemporary, up-to-date project as well, where students get this hands-on experience of learning about one of the bigger sustainability challenges, especially, you know, related to Ireland. And so again, in the same sphere of, you know, climate action and understanding some of the projects, some of the challenges that are around us, we are also launching a project on understanding carbon around you. So we would look at explore the carbon cycle. This could be very, you know, young students kind of drawing the carbon cycle or drawing carbon sinks and sources around them. It could be even going to, you know, your tree that you choose during your phenology campaign, measuring the circumference and the height, and then we can help you calculate how much storage that tree, how much carbon that tree can store. And then they could, if they were interested, even do a carbon footprint exercise around the school, or develop an action plan for how to store carbon on school grounds. Like, even things like ensuring that the groundskeepers don't cut down all the big trees that are more mature and store carbon, or looking around the neighborhood and seeing, is there a lot of fencing that could be hedges? How many, square meters of fencing is there, or bare grass areas, and can the students, perhaps even engage their community in planting more. So those are all kind of some of the options around that. So Eileen's going to take you through the next two of our projects.
Yeah, thank you, Maya. So, as part of our development, and to tie in with the EPA strategy as well around water, we will have a new campaign in the coming year around water quality. So, I mean, what that means for you, like depending on whether you're a primary or secondary school teacher, in its very, like in the most basic form, it'd be a really nice opportunity to take the students out, and walk. And if there is a river or stream or slight puddle near the school, to walk them down to it, and just to, kind of get them to observe the river or stream. And you can make basic observations, and in order to kind of decide, like, is this a healthy system? And it can be as simple as like taking a look at the water and saying, can you see the riverbed? And often, like if you have a lot of silt pollution, so just basically dirt, that's been eroded upstream but in the water, which is quite poor for the fish life, and for the little creatures that live down under the rocks. If you can't see the bottom, it's not a good sign. And then there's other things, just looking at the banks. If there's lots of trees, it's really good. It'll help, like what Maya was saying, like knit that soil together. If you're in just a field with a lot of dirt along the riverbanks, it's not quite as good. So what we'd be doing is we provide like the worksheets around this, so to prompt all those questions and to fill out a little kind of a questionnaire sheet, so you can kind of come to some conclusion together around the quality of your local river, just in the most basic way. And even just taking photos and drawing and observing and talking about the kind of trees and the kind of wildlife you see around. And even just having a look in the water, by keeping safe at the same time, but having a look in the water and seeing what you can identify, because there's always little creatures in there that the kids are usually better at picking out than we are. So that's kind of the most basic way. The next step of that, now this would be for an older group, potentially, although we are doing this with I think they're going to be 5th class group at the end of this week. But maybe for an older group, there's the next step, which would be, taking a sample of that water. You don't have to get in unless it's a tiny little stream and you're happy enough for a student to get in. But, if you can even get a bucket and tie a rope around and take a sample of the water out from a safe location, we will be providing the equipment to analyze that water. And it's mostly to do with nutrient pollution. So that would be kind of agricultural runoff or other pollution sources nearby. And we'll provide that equipment to analyze the water to actually give you a result for that water quality, and you'll be able to understand that there and then. It's very simple. I don't know if any of you ever done the water blitz. That I think it was last year, there was a water blitz. It's the same kind of functionality, really simple. Again, maybe best done by an older group or with a younger group if the teacher's going to actually carry out the little experiment. So we also have been working a little bit on macroinvertebrates, which just is the little bugs that live below the rocks in the water. And we've been doing a couple of kick samples where you kick around in the rocks and collect, using a net to collect the bugs. And that goes down really well with students. That would be something that we would more be inclined to do as a workshop, because you have to have a correct net just to gather those bugs. But that would be something that we do. And, the bugs tell you a lot about the health of the water. So that's where there's a citizen science initiative around that. Really nice project. The student can get right in there and identify. There's some bugs that are very tolerant to any kind of conditions. So they're fairly happy even if the water is pretty bad quality. So there tend to be the snails, and you can imagine the kind of things. Even shrimp, there's a lot of shrimp. Sometimes they don't mind, the quality of the water. And then there's a much more fragile, delicate species, which as soon as the water is compromised in some way, they're out of there, they're gone. So you take a look at what you find, and then you can kind of establish, the rough kind of quality of that water based on that. So lots of really interesting ideas, but the whole idea of this is to get students thinking about water, thinking about their local water, and even as simple as like do a litter pickup along the riverside, or talk about the river that's in the town and what do people use it for and why is it important, and all of these ideas. I think it's just a really nice way to get them out of the classroom. And as I said, we provide the support and the worksheets. And then if you want to take it to the next level and do the actual testing of the water, then we'll provide the equipment to do that. So very exciting. We're delighted that we'll be able to offer this in the coming year. And we spoke about this. Another theme is around seasonal tree observations. And we've actually been supporting teachers with this throughout the last few years, but it's been coordinated out of the Globe office that's in Prague. So what we are hoping to do for this year now is to make it more Irish focused, and even just work on our native trees. And we'll pick a few trees that are in common with our colleagues in Europe as well, so we can compare and contrast across. But the idea is, if you have a tree near the school, which I think hopefully most of you do, you can go out, take a look at the tree, deciduous tree. And again, February, you can go kind of early, like so before anything really happens. Take a look at the tree, ask the students to describe it. Can they look and see any buds forming on the branches and twigs? And then if you can go out then, like once a week or whatever you can manage yourself, whatever fits in. And then you can actually record the timing of that bud burst, which is really cool, and I think for most people, even adults, it's kind of exciting to see that just suddenly happen one day, and the leaves then will pop out and then they'll start to grow, so they can actually track that growth through time. So it's a lovely project. If they happen to be measuring temperature at the same time in the school, they can tie it into their temperature measurements, and then it kind of makes it a bit more involved. They can start thinking about climate change and how this fits into the bigger picture. So it's a lovely project, and they can do the same thing then when it comes time to autumn. You can pick the same tree or a different tree and have a look again at like when those leaves actually start changing color. And we provide these nice little color charts that go through all the different colors, and each color would have a code associated with it, so you can track those different codes. And then eventually the leaves will fall. So, and then that all ties in again with temperature. So this campaign itself has been, like I said, it's been up and running for a while. It's really successful. And there's great opportunities to collaborate with schools all across the world, but mostly in Europe. And they've created some great joint projects looking at trees from Ireland, or comparing that to a school in Croatia, for instance. And it's been really interesting. So, and it seems to be something it's easy to engage with. There's no specialist equipment really needed, especially for the spring one. You just need to go out there really, and you can mark which branch you're looking at just with a piece of twine around the branch, and you can use a ruler to track that leaf growth. So it really is basic. That's nice. You don't have to do anything special. And then the only thing you'll need for the autumn campaign is that color chart. Just if you want to get those exact codes, if that's what interests you, you can do that. But of course, all these campaigns and all these themes, it's kind of like, you take a look at what you find here, and then you can adapt it to your situation, your classroom, and the interest level, that you have there in your own class. So it's just, these are all just suggestions.
Yeah. And I think, like you've heard throughout all these different, suggestions and project options, some of the key things that come again is we really want to encourage kids to spend time outdoors and to observe their environment outside. So all the projects have this outdoor, project base, and then to try to make it actions oriented. So to do something about what you see, whether it's, making rain gardens or planting, rooftop gardens or little beds or micro ponds, or even just an information campaign, making videos about your project and submitting them to the project competition. There's so many different options. And all of this is based in inquiry-based learning as well. So building curiosity, kind of thinking about why is this like this, rather than jumping to a conclusion, but really bringing them all around that process of inquiry in order to have students, identify and embody the stewardship qualities for the environment and becoming agents of change. Really also engaging their community. A lot of these, one of the projects we were working with is with Fingal County Council, where the county council is very interested also in this data, but also in learning from the schools about what they find. So schools will go and talk to the council and who their community, and share, really share a lot about what they do and what they see. So we really do believe that students are agents of change and that there's a lot that can be done about some of these sustainability challenges at school. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap up because we've been through a lot of information. There's a lot of details. And of course, there's so much, to learn and different themes, and you might be interested in some or, not all of them. And those, it is an option to kind of engage in what you feel you have the capacity to do and what you feel you have the, interest to do as well. But some of the first steps would be to, you could sign up as a Globe teacher on the Globe website. You can share it or you can just email us. You will have our email, the Globe email at the end of this PowerPoint, which we'll send on to you as well. Follow us on social media, and we'll sign you up to our monthly mail letter if you would like that. That'll have the sign up links for the different campaigns as the year goes ahead. We do have kind of a provisional calendar for next year you can have a look at. And then we will, of course, training in August, but also training throughout the year. You can, in the meantime, if you're interested, go onto the Globe website, do some of their e-protocol trainings. Definitely not a requirement, just if you're interested. We have now also a Globe project interest form. So this is just for us to get an idea of, what themes are the most popular, and what themes can we, provide, what schools should we try to kind of think about already now. So that'll be shared as well in the chat box. And then again, like what we love seeing at the end of the year is the, process. Those projects don't have to be, finalized. They can also just show the process of learning and exploration in different ways, through art, through video, through, it could be music, it could be theater. And I mean, these projects all really can become integrated into different types of educational projects at school. So there's a lot of options there. There's a lot of different ways to engage. And if you, want to stay connected, you can follow us at Globe Ireland, or you can email myself or Aileen at globe@eu.antashka.org. And if you have any questions, we'll take them now.
I just see one question there, Maya. Just wondering, is there a fee for the provision of equipment for taking part in a project? But that's a really good question. So, so as I said, we're sponsored by the EPA. So to date, we've covered all costs to do with the air quality campaign. There's no fee whatsoever. I anticipate for the water campaign, we will provide the water analysis equipment free of charge. If you wanted to do some of the more other protocols, like get a nice thermometer to be able to measure air temperature or water temperature, I think you would have to purchase that yourself from the school. But if you're doing a campaign with us, we would usually provide those equipment directly to you as part of the campaign. But if there's other things you want to be involved with, like more like the themes that Maya has discussed, you will need to purchase some equipment, but it will be fairly cheap, and we will help you source that. So if you are looking for guidance on that, we can help you. And in some instances, we actually do have some equipment still in our office from a previous training session that we'd be willing to lend. So let us know if there's anything in particular that you maybe don't have a budget this year for equipment, and we can see what we can do. So that's the best thing, is just to get in touch. Yeah, the training is in August, so it's it may be tough timing. This year it's going to be in August, but we hope to do one-day training as well during the year. So we'll keep you posted on that. But our training in August, we have it'll be from 9 till 2 p.m. in Dublin. So I think it covers most of the themes and spheres here in more detail, but gives you hands-on experience of using the equipment. So that's always nice, because you can and get some experience yourself before you try to take the students out. But like we said, contact us with any questions. Always happy to talk on the phone, or even do sessions with the class, whether it's a workshop or an online session. So yeah, that's about all from us, I think, Maya.
Yeah, I think
And
that's everything.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.